Good morning, everybody. Now, this week we are going to start writing our own story all about our lost toy. Now, you made your story map for this story last week. For this lesson, you're going to need it because we're going to use the first two boxes to write the beginning of our story. Now, since it's been a couple of days since we made our story map, it would be a good idea for you to have a little talk to your grown up about what you've drawn and maybe think of your sentences and practice saying your sentences out loud before we begin to write them. Okay, well, now that we've had a little look over our story map and reminded ourselves of the story that we're going to be writing this week, it's time to have a little think about how we should begin to write a story. Now, at the beginning of stories, which you might have read at home yourself, or even with us in school, there are often some very special words which are used. Can you have a little chat with your grown up and see if you can remember or if you know what those words might be? Okay, so there are lots of different ways that we could begin to write a story. On my board, I've written 3 of them, so let's have a little look. My first one says once upon a time, and this one tends to be in more traditional stories, so stories that are very, very old, that have been passed down from generations, from families to families. This tends to be the most common one, the one that we see the most at the beginning of stories. But there are also 2 other ones that are long ago and one day. Now, for my story today, when I'm writing mine, I'm going to use this top one. Now, you might want to use long ago or one day, and that's absolutely fine. But for me, I'm going to choose once upon a time. Okay, so now that I've decided that I'm going to use once upon a time at the start of my story, I need to write it down. So, I need a capital O to start with. Now remember, capital O and lowercase o are just the same, so we need to make sure that they're a little bit bigger if we want it to be a capital letter, and to be a little bit bigger if we want it to be a capital letter. So, once, finger space, upon, finger space, a, finger space, I, split diagram, time. Once upon a time. Now, let's have a look at our story map. Look at your first box. In my box, I've got a picture of myself and my favourite teddy Bounce. So I need to say who is in my story. I need to say that I'm in my story, and I need to say the name of my teddy. So maybe my sentence might be, once upon a time, Miss Hull was walking with Bounce, running with Bounce, playing with Bounce. Let's have a little think. Once upon a time, I like the idea of walking because I'm going somewhere. So once upon a time, Miss Hull. Now I need a capital M because it's my name, and a capital H for my name. Once upon a time, Miss Hull was red word. Some people say was, but it actually was. Just to make sure you can see. There we go. Once upon a time, Miss Hull was walking with capital B because Bounce is the name of my teddy. And remember, sometimes the letter S can be written like this. These 2 special bends at the end of that word, Bounce, can have a curly K and an F. Okay. Now, once upon a time, Miss Hull was walking with Bounce. I've got to the end of my sentence, so now I need to put my full stop. Can you have a chat with your grown-up now about what you're going to write in your first sentence? Remember, we need to introduce our main characters. Now, your main character might be you and your favourite teddy, or you might want to use a different name for your main character. Entirely up to you. Have a chat about your first sentence, and remember, when you start to write it down, we need a capital letter at the start, finger spaces in between our words, and a full stop at the end. See if you can remember to include your capital letters for the names of the people in your story. So we've all written our very first sentence. We've all written about our main characters in our story. Now it's time to say where we are going. So in my story, I was on my way to the park. You might be on your way to the shop. You might be on your way to the pumpkin patch. Wherever you are going, now is the time to tell our audience in our story. So, once upon a time, Miss Hull was walking with Bounce. Now, because we're together, we need to say they. Okay? So we're going to say they were going to the park because that's where I was going. So capital letter to start. Right. And it's one of our red words, so we've got to just remember how to spell this one. They were going to the park. Remember, in between each of my words, I've got my finger spaces, my gaps, my finger spaces. They were going to the park. I've got the end of my sentence, so now I need to do my full stop. Talk to your grown up. Where are you on your way to in your story? And can you begin to write your sentence? Remember, we need a capital letter at the start, finger spaces in between each of our words, and a full stop on the end. Remember to use those phonic sounds that we've been looking at over the last few weeks, our R sound and part. Have a little go at writing your next sentence. Okay, everybody, we're doing a fantastic job so far. Well done. We're nearly at the end of the beginning. As funny as that sounds, we're nearly finished writing the beginning of our story. So, we've written about our main characters. We've written about where they're going to. And now it's time to tell everybody what we did with our teddy when we got to the place we were going to. So, it's what I got up to with Bounce at the park. Now, I might want to write that we played on the swings. I might want to write that we played on the slide. I might even want to say that we got some ice cream while we were there. So, let's have a little think. Let's read our story again. Once upon a time, Miss Hull was walking with Bounce. They were going to the park. Maybe I could write now, they played on the swings. 5 words, okay? With they, we've already written it once. We're going to do it again. Capital T, H, E, Y. They, next word is played. Put, or, now we know our A sound. We've written it this week. We've been practicing it over the last few weeks. Put, or, A. Now, sometimes when we write in the past tense, we have ed on the end. So if something happened yesterday, or the day before, or last year, or last month, or last week, we usually talk about it in the past tense. And when we write past tense words, we have ed on the end. So they played on the swing. They played on the swings. What did you do when you got to the place where you were going with your teddy? Have a little think with your grown up, have a chat about it, and then write your next sentence. Well done, everybody. So we've written the first 3 sentences of our story. That is fantastic. Well done. You need to give yourself a great big clap because that's really big year 1 work that you've done today. Super job. Now tomorrow we're going to write the middle of our story. So we'll need our story maps again. And if you tune back into our YouTube channel, you'll be able to see them how we write the middle of our story. Well done, everybody.